Hey guys, this is Ashley Cole, and today I would like to talk to you about phrases, clauses, and basic comma rules. So a phrase is a group of words that does not have a subject and a verb. Okay? A phrase is a group of words without a subject and a verb. All right? So let's look at some of these different phrases here. We have around the house. Around the house, there is no subject, there is no verb. So it is a phrase. In the corner, to pass a bill, juggled work and home life. Here you might look at this and say, well, hey, look, there's a verb, but does not have a subject and a verb, so it is considered a phrase. And these are different types of phrases. The ones that you'll notice the most are prepositional phrases like around the house, in the corner. But we won't really deal with those yet. But I just wanted you in general to know what a phrase was. So just keep that in mind that a phrase is a group of words without both a subject and a verb. All right. Next, we're going to talk about clauses. Now, a clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb. So let's look here at the first clause here is I smiled. Right? Seems very simple. It's actually a complete thought. It is a sentence. I have a subject. The subject is I, and I also have a verb, smiled. Okay, so I have a subject and a verb. This is considered a clause. The next one is he laughed at me. Is it a phrase or a clause? Let's look at it. Does it have a subject and a verb? He is our subject. Laughed is our verb. So if we have a subject and a verb, we know that we have a clause. Okay, let's look at the next one. Because I was angry. We have a subject. The subject is I. We have a verb. The verb is was. We have a subject. We have a verb. So therefore, we have a clause. All right. So the differences between phrases and clauses. Phrases are groups of words without both a subject and verb. Clauses are groups of words with both a subject and a verb. All right, so let's talk about the different types of clauses. All right, we have independent clauses and we have dependent clauses. Independent clauses, I mean, it says what it is, right? Independent. An independent clause can stand alone as a sentence because they express complete thoughts. Dependent clauses cannot stand alone as a sentence. They're dependent on another clause. They do not express a complete thought. All right. So independent means an independent clause is a clause that can stand all by itself as a complete thought. It can be a sentence. A dependent clause is a clause that cannot stand by itself as a complete thought. Let's look at some examples. So first, let's look at some independent clauses. I smiled. Well, we know it's a clause because we have a subject and a verb. All right. Is it a dependent clause? It is, even though it's very, very, very short. It is actually a sentence because it expresses a complete thought. All right. The next example right here, I love English composition, right? Don't you? I love English composition. All right. So I have a subject, I, and I have a verb, love. I love English composition. It is a sentence. It expresses a complete thought. It is an independent clause. The next example, I am excited about beginning a new semester. So our subject is I. Our subject is I. Our verb is am. I am excited about beginning a new semester. It expresses a complete thought. It is a sentence. All right. This is, we'll skip this one. All right. Okay. we'll skip this one because this one may be a little confusing. All right, we'll go on to dependent clauses. So a dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence. They do not express complete thoughts. So for example, because my homework was incomplete. Well, I know it is a clause because I have a subject, homework, and have a verb, was. I know it is a clause, but I know it is a dependent clause because it cannot stand alone on its own as a sentence. Because my homework was incomplete, what? Right? It just kind of drops off. It's not a complete thought. So that is what makes it a dependent clause. All right. The next example, since I was in the process of moving. All right. Do we know it's a clause? Yes, because it has a subject, I, and it has a verb, was. All right. Sorry, was. So we have a subject, we have a verb. We know that it is a clause. However, it cannot stand alone as a complete thought. Since I was in the process of moving what, right? So that is what makes this clause a dependent clause. All right? So now that we know the difference between phrases and clauses, we know the difference between independent clauses and dependent clauses. This is really the point of the video. You have to know those things so that you can know your basic comma rules for the sentences that you write. There are other rules that go along with commas, and we'll get into those during the semester. But at the beginning of the semester, I always like to share this information with all of my students because these are the basic comma rules that you need to begin your writing. All right, so here are our basic rules for two independent clauses. If I have two independent clauses beside each other, all right, there are three different things that I can do. All right, so I have an independent clause here. I enjoy running marathons. Independent clause here. Okay, the other independent clause, it gives me a chance to work out. I don't really run marathons. Okay, so I have two, I'm going to put up here, two IDCs, independent clause. Okay, all right, if I have two independent clauses, I can put between them a comma and a coordinating conjunction. All right, so that's my first rule. If I have two independent clauses beside one another, I can join them with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Okay? Now, what are the coordinating conjunctions? Conjunctions are words, or coordinating conjunctions are words that connect words, phrases, or sentences, or clauses, excuse me, clauses. So our coordinating conjunctions are and, or, nor, but, yet, and so. All right, so that's our first rule. Our second rule, if I have two independent clauses, so I have the same independent clauses here. I enjoy running marathons. It gives me a chance to work out. The easiest thing I can do between two independent clauses is put a period, right? So that's my second rule. That's easy. If I have two independent clauses, I can join them with a comma and a coordinating conjunction, or I can simply put a period between them because they are two complete thoughts. All right. The last rule for independent clauses is if I have two independent clauses beside one another, I enjoy running marathons. It gives me a chance to work out. If I have two independent clauses beside one another, I can join them with a semicolon as long as the two independent clauses are related, right? So I'm talking about marathons in one independent clause, and I'm talking about why I like running marathons, right? So these two independent clauses are related, so I can put between them a semicolon. All right, we only have two more rules left. Just hold on. Two rules. They're very easy. All right. So the next two rules are, if I have an independent clause and a dependent clause, what do I do? All right. And these are kind of, you probably do these without thinking about them, but I just wanted to give you the rule that goes along with them. All right. So if I have an independent clause in a sentence and a dependent clause that comes after it, I will not need a comma. I just leave it alone. So for example, I received a low score. I received a low score. All right. I received a low score is my independent clause, right? My IDC. Okay. Because my homework was incomplete. That is my dependent clause, all right? So if I have an independent clause first and a dependent clause second, I can leave it alone. I don't have to do anything to it, okay? But if I have a dependent clause that comes first and an independent clause that comes second in a sentence, I have to use a comma after the dependent clause. And if you read the sentence, you'll hear the pause and you'll probably put a comma just by intuition because it sounds right, because you hear a pause. So because my homework was incomplete, that is our dependent clause, I received a low score. I received a low score is our independent clause, right? That's our complete thought. So if you hear it, you'll hear it, right? Because my homework was incomplete, I received a low score. So naturally, you're going to hear that pause, and you're probably going to put that comma anyway, but that is the rule, okay? If you can get these basic rules down, these are the rules that most people don't understand and a lot of people miss. So if you can get these, you are well on your way to writing well. All right, so let's go ahead and review one more time. All right, so let's look at phrases. Phrases are groups of words without a subject and verb. Clauses are groups of words with a subject and a verb, right? That's what a clause is, okay? So we have two types of clauses. We have IDCs, or independent clauses. An independent clause is a clause that can stand alone as a sentence. It's a complete thought, okay? And a dependent clause is a clause that, excuse me, cannot stand alone as a sentence, okay? And then next, we have our basic rules. All right, if I have two independent clauses beside one another in a sentence, I can do three things, right? There I have an option of doing three different things. I can put a comma and a coordinating conjunction, right? Because independent clauses are complete thoughts, I can put a period, right? And if my two independent clauses are related, I can put semicolon, all right? If I have an independent clause first and a dependent clause second in a sentence, no comma is needed. If I have a dependent clause first and an independent clause second, I must have a comma. So if you're not familiar with these rules or with these words, you may want to go back and listen to this video again. I will have a practice quiz at the end of the week up for you to just kind of practice a little bit. It won't be for very many points. You'll actually probably just get points for doing it. But I just want you to become a little more familiar with these, and I'm also going to assign you a little bit of reading from your textbook just so that you'll be able to get a little more practice with these. But like I said before, if you can get these basic clause rules down, this is what a lot of people struggle with. So you'll be well on your way to learning to write well. All right. Thank you and have a great day and happy learning.